Scientist development of technical and advocacy resources for watershed health. So just an overview here. I'm going to just say this. About a year ago, a work group of community scientists and professionals came together to support usage of environmental data to inform and influence watershed management decision-making at the local level. So today, as representatives from this work group, Carol, something the matter?
No, sorry.
Okay. We will share the resources that we are developing. We're going to look for feedback and possible future collaborations from interested folks here. And hopefully we will support or catalyze or seed efforts with you guys to support locally to work locally to support watershed health. So a bit of background here first. The Stroud Center has worked with watershed groups throughout the Delaware Basin, over 50 in fact, to deploy these Enviro DIY monitoring stations throughout the basin. Over 150 stations have deployed. These collect continuous data. We're focusing primarily on conductivity, water temperature, and depth. All the data are online. They are real-time via the Monitor My Watershed data portal. So to support this network of users, we have these monthly meetings. There's over 200 folks that are on the distribution list for these meetings. Over course of time, this question kept coming up. How can we use this data to inform or influence watershed management, watershed decision-making? So we formed this work group in response to that. Our initial focus, again, is on conductivity, temperature, and depth. To point out here, these are continuous stations that we're sort of working with in this network, but the data, working with this data is not dependent on it being continuous data. And I'm noticing that the screen I'm seeing here is different than this one. So that's the point I just made. And another component to point out here is that this has led to planning and development of other resources, which we're going to get into a little bit here, but we'll kind of allude to that at the end as well.
Can I ask one question? What is conductivity exactly?
Conductivity is how well the water conducts electricity. That is directly related to the concentration of dissolved ions. A lot of those ions are often pollutants. In this case, often in our region, what we're talking about is salt. Presenters today in this local policy and practice work group: Carol Armstrong, Dave Manning, Joe Debus, Tally MacArthur, Krista Reeves, and myself. Some other folks in the group: Alex Jackson, Ian Brastow, and Steve Tricarico. So what a lot of folks don't really key into is that many or most watershed management decisions happen at the local level, townships, municipalities. Materials being developed, therefore, are intended to be used by organizations like EACs, watershed groups, and really anyone who is interested in engaging with their local municipalities, with local decision makers. Just a quick note that these materials that we're developing are being housed on the Manage My Watershed data portal platform. I passed out some handouts that have URL codes or QR codes for that. So our goal today, as I mentioned earlier, is to share info about the resources, get feedback from you, and maybe catalyze, inspire involvement at the local level. So here's our session agenda. Tally is going to do a quick survey. We're going to have goals and intentions from Carol. Then Dave Manning is going to spend some time on actually describing these resources. Joe Debus is going to talk about some case studies. And then Tally is going to go into sort of the role of local government and tie that in. And then we'll conclude, and at the end we have more of an official type survey that we would really appreciate your feedback on.
Somehow it... There you go. All right, sorry everyone. Anyway, it's been changed. But anyway, we're the Delaware River Basin Policy and Practice Group. Our documents are called Tools for Engaging with Municipalities and the Public on Freshwater Issues, and they can be found under the heading Newest Tools on Manage My Watershed, which is part of the Wiki Watershed, an initiative of Stroud Water Research Center. So these are what I'm going to present to you today. First, the intentions of our group, then the products being developed, and then our recommended uses of these products. So first, the intentions. Our long-term purpose was to collaborate with, identify, prioritize, and implement strategies for engagement with local decision makers. Our group has varied degrees of involvement already in positions within towns and watershed groups. And we're hoping that this information is going to help prepare people to deal with the recommendations from planning commissions, municipal decisions about waivers given to developers for their land development and subdivision things. We know that the needs are going to vary from community to community. So another intention was to understand what kind of knowledge and guidance people would need to work with local government and which entities, municipal entities, are stakeholders. So for example, that of course begins with the residents of a township. This is, by the way, an organizational chart of one of Pennsylvania's second-class municipalities, which means it's a small, simpler kind of organization. But Board of Supervisors, EACs, and sustainability committees, township manager, special projects managers, building and zoning, which one of our plenary speakers just talked about the importance of thinking about those ordinances, public works, and parks and recreation. So finally, again, another intention was to develop topical literature digests and infographics. So we wanted to be aspirational in creating materials that are instructive yet relevant to varied preferences for visualization, depth, and detail. And here's a beautiful example from Valley Forge Trout Unlimited, where they've condensed and made very easily understandable 60 years of USGS data on chlorides within Valley Creek, the most chloride-impacted stream in all of Chester County, showing not only the rapid increase in the chlorides in the last 20 years, but also how quickly it's broaching into, or perhaps, yeah, how quickly it's broaching the levels of chloride that become toxic for aquatic life. Here's another way of presenting data actually on that same stream, which shows that this is a year worth of data of conductivity. We just said that conductivity was a major way of measuring chlorides. And you can see that it's very high pretty much all year long. And when you have a high conductivity during base flow, so the downward jags are when it's diluted. I've kept the depth out of the graph, just showing you the conductivity. But it keeps returning to this high level. And that high conductivity during that base flow indicates non-point source chloride contamination, such as from groundwater and soil contamination, and in this case, underlying soft limestone geology. But in other parts of Pennsylvania, you'll see this from mining discharges. Another intention was to help people trying to get involved in policy engagement. Here's an example of a New Jersey group in the pollen skill, where they used another method, synoptic chloride sampling, to find the hot spots within their system, within that stream system, and that would help them to focus their advocacy efforts. Another intention is to identify other risks and underlying parameters. And this is a map, or I should say a graph, of thermal pollution that is leading to impaired water quality and even species extirpation, believe it or not, in the eastern United States as well as the western United States. And this infographic shows 10 or 12 streams in the Poconos and Upper Delaware River that shows their comparative average summer water temperatures. And again, that red band at the top is showing that the streams are getting very close on an average level, which means that there are many times when the temperature is much higher. of a level that causes physiological stress responses in fish. So these are all, as you can see, instructive for explaining things to others. Another risk was this unprotected, this illegal salt pile. And I won't go into the detail here, but citizen science collected data, brought it to, and used it to help us township understand the problem with that pile. We have guidance documents, so now I'm going to the products. They are themed. They are based on published studies and government reports, as well as in-stream continuous data and other data. They have been reviewed by established expert scientists in the subject matter, and they're currently available for stream temperature, conductivity, and engaging with municipalities. We can use these kind of other beautiful illustrative visuals to understand what happens to streams. But also, we are interested in your input. We want to know your ideas on what we should focus on next, and these are some of the possibilities. Some of these subjects are already covered in some of the documents, but not as a central theme. Other products are one-pagers, so we have executive documents. We have subtopic summaries that we're trying to make attractive and digestible. We have summaries individualized for community quests, like we did for a fishing association who wanted to know what the thermal thresholds were for fish. We want to provide infographics for quick transmission of issues, such as on the left, kind of data-dense explanation of the temperature thresholds for fish, and on the right, a quick, very attractive, attention-getting display of that information that might be used with the public. I'm sorry, these are just the what I was telling you. Then we are presenting, we're recommending the uses of these for presentations and infographics, as you can see, for municipal meetings, local managers and stakeholders. Also, teachers in classrooms, we can provide, again, illustrative, easy to absorb information, as well as trainings for master watershed stewards, EACs, grant applications, municipal engineers, permit issuers, and MS4 program. I know I'm going to create one for use with my planning commission. And finally, this is our group. We are interested in other members joining if you have an interest in providing this kind of specialized information. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm perfect. That's good. You can hear me, I guess? Good. I'm Dave. I'm Dave Manning. I'm going to be talking about some of the specific resources that have been developed by our work group over the past year. In particular, what we refer to as resource documents. And these are documents from which all the other documents are spun off. The one-pagers, the PowerPoints, the curricula to different types of people. Great. So these are the resource documents. We have four. The first three we refer to as primers or primer documents. These deal with putting stream temperature data to work, conductivity data to work, and depth data as well. These three primer documents are intended to have individuals understand the respective data to their fullest extent in a comprehensive fashion, and in additionally to inform individuals how to utilize those diverse kinds of data. The fourth document here is how to engage with municipal leaders. This represents the interface between the collection of these types of data and municipal decision making. This is a work in progress. We have two documents completed and posted. The first document relating to stream temperature, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The fourth document, how to engage with municipal leaders. Those are posted again, and then that document dealing with conductivity is almost ready for the review process. As Carol indicated, we go through two types of review processes, internal and external, with relevant authorities. And this one, depth, is on the horizon for us. We have not yet started that. Those that are posted to manage my watershed, tools for engaging with municipal leaders on freshwater issues. And this is the specific link to that, and I'll come back to that link in a moment. Now, to give you an example of what we're doing, I'm going to focus on the first document, putting stream temperature data to work. This is the structure of that document. We have 4 major sections and a few others besides. The first is determinants of stream temperature, and I'll amplify that yet again for you. Temperature thresholds for aquatic organisms. We go into this section in relation to how those thresholds are actually determined. And with regard to the organisms, we're talking about warm water, cold water fishes, in addition, the benthic macroinvertebrates and the thresholds in which they can thrive or survive. We devote a lot of time and space to land use and development of concern. Obviously, we're interested in the impacts of deforestation, impervious surface, impoundments, groundwater depletion, and so forth. Our 4th section is when and how to approach municipalities based on temperature data and temperature data alone. The other papers cover what they do in terms of civic engagement. What would trigger the need to engage with a municipality? What does the not only what do we get out of it, or what does the stream get out of it, but what does the municipality get out of it? So we are always looking for this win-win kind of situation. This document and the other primer documents are lengthy. This in particular, some 40 pages long, fortunately with some illustrations. But our intent is to provide a clarity such that anyone can access these kinds of documents. And the document does not need to be read from front to back. Rather, each section was developed independently, so that depending upon need and or interest, one can access that kind of section. Okay, so now determinants of stream temperature, to go further into the example here. This is not a complete listing of the topics, but within that first section, we talk about, for example, atmospheric and groundwater signatures as they relate to temperature. Solar radiation in all of its manifestations. We all know something about seasonal and ideal variations, but most of us don't know anything about those variations in relation to stream order. Exceptions to temperature uniformity. It's one thing to monitor stream temperature, but the fish monitor it in a different kind of way, and they seek out areas that are important to their ability to thrive, reproduce, and survive in general. Considerations regarding evaporation and transpiration.
D-I-E-L?
Yes. What's that?
That word.
Yeah, deal. Another word for diurnal.
Oh, okay.
Does everyone know what that means, diurnal?
Daily.
All good.
Yeah, varying through the day, right? Okay. The preferred formal term is DL. As I understand it, I used to refer to this as diurnal. Evaporation, transpiration, transients that occur with stormwater runoff, and the influence of stream morphology and stream mixing. So this is these are teasers in a way for the temperature document. This is just the first document. All the other sections have a similar array of detail to them. Next, yeah. Let me go ahead. The conductivity document that's almost complete now follows almost the same format as the temperature document. And the next one. Okay, so we've got the primer documents. These are temperature, conductivity, and depth. It's worth underscoring the purpose of the primer documents because they go deeply into the data so that anyone can really try to understand them in the fullest. The view of the work group has been that environmental advocates must have a clear and substantive understanding of the science they wish to communicate. At one level, this relates to the credibility of an advocate as a resource to anyone, the community, the municipal leadership, whatever. At another level, it's identifying points at which to initiate communication. And at a third level, it's countering incorrect suppositions of information, whether they are honest mistakes or whether they are intentionally misleading. So for all these reasons, we would like, through these documents, to develop that clear and substantive understanding of what you're talking about. Next slide. Our fourth document is the capstone of it all. It's the heart of what we're trying to do. Everything leads into this document. And that's how to engage with municipal leaders. I'm not going to go through each of these sections, nor am I going to amplify any of these sections. What I want you to do as you read through this is to realize that this is a step-by-step, detailed roadmap of how one, collecting stream data or otherwise analyzing stream data, can engage with municipal decision makers. Now, as opposed to the primer documents, this is a relatively short document. It's some 12 pages in length. And we've written it with a clarity that, again, will lend itself to accessibility toward anyone, an advocate or just an interested person, might engage with. It's worth, as I've alluded to, worth underscoring for whom these documents are written. Initially, we were writing the documents for individuals who manage and collect data from the Enviro DIY stations. I think everyone on our work group represents one of those individuals. As you know, it's one thing to collect the data, and the data from these stations are accurate, they're continuous, they're fun to look through, they're fun to analyze in different respects, but the question that came up to us, how do we use them? I mean, what do we do with them? What kind of impact can we have with temperature, conductivity, and depth? Not yet? Okay, so firstly, at least, individuals who manage and collect data from Enviro DIY stations. Secondly, as we began to expand our vision for this, individuals who are interested in the translation of data into environmental advocacy and or policy. So this is now a larger group of individuals, but it does overlap with these up here. And finally, anyone inclined to understand what the data mean and how they can be used. Anyone. The documents are written to be accessible to anyone interested in this. And then my last. So what we need, please, for any of you who might be so interested in these topics or in what we're doing, we'd like to ask you to take a look at the documents that are posted. We have 2 documents posted. Here's that link again. And we're asking some pretty simple questions. Do the documents work for you? Do you enjoy them? Do you get something out of them? Do you have suggestions for us? Do you have things that don't work for you? Where they're posted provides room for you to indicate what you like, what you don't like, suggestions, comments, and so forth. Second, and don't be surprised, are you interested in working with us? We're a small work group, and we have a range of perspectives, but perhaps not the complete range of perspectives. We're developing additional resource documents, additional primer documents, as you will. And Carol alluded to some of the topics, and spin-off materials. This is a lot of work for us. So if you're interested, let us know. Secondly, we need case studies to amplify what we've done in each of the primer documents. If you have interest, once you read the documents, if you have examples in your own domain of what might work, let us know, and we can develop those into something that can represent a resource within these resources.
Thank you for allowing me to participate in today's presentation and conversation. My name's Joe Debus. My background's in heavy industrial construction, and I was introduced to several of the local and state stormwater management practices while working as a construction manager for one of my clients. When I retired, I wanted to learn more about stormwater management and stream health. Today I'm going to talk about paths to the citizen science community, the resource documents, citizen involvement and how critical it is, and a few case studies. I'm a lifelong learner, and I've continued that practice since 2021 when I retired. For me, joining the citizen science community started with the Isaac Walton League, continued with CRC Watershed Association, Penn State Extension, Stroud Water Research Center, the Enviro DIY groups, and eventually into my local EAC. As you've heard earlier, our group has been working on developing resource documents for those of us in the Enviro DIY community. The current resource document under review, as Dave said, is the stream conductivity document. After reviewing this document, I better understand how measurements taken every 5 minutes are critical to understanding the conditions of our stream health. In addition, these measurements can provide an analysis of what types of macroinvertebrates a stream can support, and or whether or not the stream can support macroinvertebrates or aquatic organisms at all. These measurements can also notify us of massive conductivity increases due to stormwater being swept or washed into our streams. One example I have when I was measuring conductivity was on a tributary to the east branch of the Chester Creek. As a group, we were taking a salt snapshot in February of 2023. All of the sample sites were predetermined and pinned, as you can see on this map. I encountered an outlier with unusually high conductivity readings in West Goshen Township. On average, for all the locations I was taking, which was about 35 locations, the chloride levels were averaging around 600. This particular site was over 1,800. So I checked 3 other locations to verify that my readings were accurate, and they were. Eventually, I learned that there was a stormwater inlet right on Westchester Pike with an underground pipe leading right to the headwaters of this tributary, and that was the reason why all these conductivity readings were unusually high. I'm going to turn to some citizen involvement examples. Now, these examples are very basic and simple, but make no mistake, the impact on the community was huge and long-lasting. One of our colleagues shared in a neighboring county that they had a residential development that was approved with virtually zero input from the community. The Board of Supervisors did their job. They provided an avenue and a path for the community to engage and ask questions and participate, but nobody showed up. So the residential development that the community was not in favor of was built. There was nothing they could do about it. It was too little, too late. On the heels of that project, there was a commercial project that was rejected, mainly because the community awareness had been raised from this previous project, and they did get involved. They did participate in the community meetings, and that project was rejected. These scenarios remind me of one of my favorite quotes. Decisions will be made by those who show up. In my community, developers proposing to build 85 homes on 65 acres. This development is being proposed to be built on former farmland, has wetlands, steep slopes, 2 underground high-pressure gas lines. It's a challenging piece of property to build anything on, let alone a residential development. That developer is using an existing ordinance for a conditional use application. Under that ordinance, they have to allow for 40% of the space to be 40% of the space must be dedicated to open space. The engineered design, as you would expect, included multiple stormwater basins in this area. The stormwater basins account for over 5 acres, and they included that 5 acres in their 40% open space calculation to allow them to build more houses. So when they got confronted with that, they had to recalculate. It contributed to the rejection of that project by the Board of Supervisors and our Planning Commission. Another opportunity to engage developed with our annual MS4 report that was being reviewed by our EAC. I was able to put the time into reviewing the MS4 report thoroughly and then reporting and summarizing it back to our EAC. MSEs are not easily understood by most MS4s are not easily understood by most citizens. They're regulated and permitted by PAYDEP. Local municipalities operate state regulated MS4s. Local municipalities own all of the point sources that are discharging into our streams, lakes, and rivers. The municipalities own them. So every stormwater inlet that you drive on our roads that ends up into a stream, your municipality or your township owns and is responsible for what's discharging into those waters. Joining my EAC in July of 2023 has allowed me to participate in several review projects, and we initiated a riparian buffer restoration project that was just approved. Citizen involvement is critical. It's critical to affecting change. Lack of citizen involvement also impacts policy, as I described earlier, and it could be no change or real change. Again, it's worth repeating. Decisions are made by those who show up. Thank you.
My name is Tali MacArthur. I am, next slide, with the Pennsylvania Organization for Watersheds and Rivers. Kind of a long name, but a fun acronym. It's POWER. We are a statewide organization that supports the efforts of local community-based watershed organizations across the entire state. And one of the projects that we do this through lots of great stuff. We have workshops and webinars and conferences. If you attend the session after us, you'll learn a little bit more about our Schuylkill, one of our sojourns that we help fund. So we fund river sojourns to get people out on the water, to recognize the importance of rivers through recreational opportunities. And we also work with DCNR, our partners, to celebrate one river a year called the Pennsylvania River of the Year. So if you feel like going west, young man, you can go enjoy the sojourns and all these opportunities on the Allegheny. That is our River of the Year. So, what's that? Not for profit. Yep. No, not trying to get you to buy anything. Okay, next slide. All right, so we are really lucky in the state of Pennsylvania. Hopefully you all know that we have this really important part of our Constitution. I think it's called the Environmental Clause. But basically it says that you, as a citizen of Pennsylvania, have a right to clean air, pure water, the preservation of our natural scenic resources. But the most important thing about this is that these are held in trust by the Commonwealth. And the reason that I am sharing this with you is because it is super important for you to remember that municipalities and local governments must comply with Article 1, Section 27 of the Constitution. And as Joe so eloquently told us and reminded us, they won't do this if somebody isn't there making sure that they do so. So that's why I brought up this quick. It's in our state constitution, but it has a trickle-down effect to every part of our government. Next slide. So we've been talking a lot about getting involved with your local municipalities. And we were kind of struggling whether to decide whether my part of the presentation should come at the beginning or the end here. Am I wrapping up or am I introducing? But I might be repeating a few things that have already been said, but they really are worth reminding you. So municipalities in Pennsylvania are enabled by law to do a lot of things. They are really important parts of the decisions that are made in this state. And I just listed the things that are relevant to the kinds of things that we're concerned about. But this is like the tip of the iceberg of what your municipal officials have to deal with on a daily basis. But they do have these, they are enabled to regulate and have control over these elements. And I don't have to read them, but land use, preservation and regulation of stormwater, as Joe reminded us. Next slide. This is probably not new to anybody, but it's really important to keep it in mind because it really is the foundation of why we care. As the intensity of land use increases and goes from our forested riparian buffers through sort of ag lands, and then you're sort of like one house every few acres or whatever, and then your parking lots, your intensity of land use is going to increase your impervious surface, which is without a doubt going to lead to water quality problems. So this is just a reminder of why we care and why local land use decisions are like the #1 contributor, and how we manage our infrastructure is really contributing to water quality. Next slide. So again, just a little reminder, local government is created by state legislator. They provide public services, and examples of local government are municipalities, counties, your municipal authorities, your county conservation districts, the people we heard from this morning, and yes, school districts are considered elements of local government. Next slide. So just real quick, who does what? We have Power has put together a series on this training. It's 3 recorded hour-and-a-half-long sessions that go much deeper into this. They're phenomenal. If you want to learn more, I can send you links. But basically, these are our county functions. We do environmental resource inventories. We do county comprehensive plans, which are really important because then the municipalities have to follow the county conservation plans. And in some cases, they are also passing ordinances. But they have a lot of other responsibilities too, which I'm going to touch on a little bit later. Your county conservation district, kind of heard from them this morning. I'm not going to repeat all the cool stuff they do, but definitely know your county conservation district staff because they're doing a lot with review of plans and permitting for erosion and sediment control, obviously land use that desperately impacts our water quality. So this kind of, again, goes over a slide from before, but just to show you just how critical it is to engage with your municipalities because they do all of these things. And in all of these ways, every single one of these, you have an opportunity as a concerned and interested advocate and member of the public to engage. They could not do any of this without the opportunity for public input. So go ahead, next slide. However, they have a ton of other things that they have to worry about. And I live in the Chesapeake Bay. Sorry, don't kick me out. Also an important water body in the state. In the kind of things that we worry about. But there was some research done by some folks who are looking at the Chesapeake Bay health and municipal officials' sort of thoughts on that. And their research and their surveys of local government officials listed these 6 things as the top concerns of municipal officials. They are elected, some of them are volunteer, some of them have other jobs. This is what they care about. You'll notice something really important missing here. Water quality, land use, although we'll talk about that. Macroinvertebrates, no, not on this list. Even fish, even fisheries, right? We're thinking, tourism, but, we're thinking tourism, we're thinking money, we're thinking, we heard about the the recreational economy in Pennsylvania. Not really here. So this is what they care about. So maybe now you're thinking, wait, you're just telling me I should go to these meetings, but if they don't care, why should I go, right? So let's go on to the next slide. Because it is still really, oh my God, it's still really important to do your very best to educate your elected officials. There are, and we go into this in a lot more detail in the training, but there's a lot of challenges to do that. Some elected officials last forever. They are ingrained and entrenched in the way they think. You probably won't even be able to talk to them. Sometimes they turn over so quickly, you spend your time educating one and they're gone. But we need to keep doing it because these environmental issues are really complex and it takes time and effort. Next slide. I'm going to go over. So the most important thing that you need to do is think about what are your values and what are your concerns and what are their top priorities. You are not going to be able to change the priorities of your local government officials, well, unless you are one. But what you need to be able to do is to link your resource values and concerns with how they match up with your priorities. Obviously, there's a couple that overlap pretty clearly, right? Flooding, everyone cares about flooding. We can't even say climate change in some places, right? We can only say flooding. But some of the other things are really important. And one of the quick examples I often give is that your municipal officials might care about crime. And there could be this kind of dilapidated playground in the area, maybe an old basketball hoop, and it's a lot of gray space, it's a lot of impervious space. But it has been shown, research has shown, that green spaces and green parks and open space limit crime. It limits things like like graffiti and loitering and drug use in the area. Green spaces limit crime and limit blight. So you want to make that kind of connection. They care about infrastructure maintenance, right? They don't want their roads washing out. You care about fish passage because you want species of fish to be able to migrate and aquatic organism passage. So you might not want to make the case of it's really important for our macroinvertebrates to be in lots of places in our rivers. They don't really care, but they don't want their roads and bridges washing out. So, removing dams, getting culverts that are the right size installed, those are the way that you're going to make the connections between what you care about and what they care about. And education. Outdoor learning in open spaces is so important to kids' well-being. And so you can make that connection with outdoor spaces are necessary for education, and that's what they care about. So you're hearing all these really great ideas, like you're getting the point that it's really important to engage with municipalities, but you're like, I don't know. Okay, so maybe you're thinking to yourself you don't have enough technical knowledge. Well, we have a solution for that, right? We have these resources so you can increase your technical knowledge. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, I have so much to do, and these meetings, they take forever, and you go, and they don't really talk about anything. They have to go to another one. That's okay, we get it. First of all, you have more knowledge than you think. Right now, in this room, you have more knowledge than you think, and your values and what you care about matter just as much as your technical knowledge. You can also increase your technical knowledge by going to my Wiki Watershed. And we have this little thing, well, believe it or not, meaningful engagement can happen at the soccer game. Your local officials are local members of your community. They are likely sitting next to you at events that you go to. You bump into them in the grocery store. Have a conversation about what you care about. Ask them when the next meeting is that you can go to. This is me. I'm up here talking to you. I bumped into a commissioner, a local county commissioner, and I lost my tongue. I had to look for it. I had no idea what to say. I'm like, oh my God, it's like a famous person. You might get intimidated by not know what to say. You maybe feel overwhelmed or hopeless. How much can I possibly, what impact can I have? So we understand this, but we really want to let you know, like I said before, your municipal officials are people too. They live in your community because they love your community. That's why they're there, and that's why you're there. Make that connection. That's all you have to talk about. Isn't this a great place to live? I'm a little worried about XYZ. I feel overwhelmed and hopeless. I feel that way all the time. So it's really critical to choose your one thing. What is the one thing that you care about, and trust that there is one thing that your neighbor cares about, and they're going to go to the meeting or they're going to engage on that one thing. So I'm all about dark skies lately, and I can't stand the lighting that's in my local community. So that's something like I really want to think about. My boyfriend's all into birds, so I'm thinking let's make our local town, a bird community. So pick the one thing and count on the fact that there's going to be somebody else in your community that picks their one thing, and together you guys can really make an impact. Just a couple more things. Oh my gosh, I don't know, those big developers, they're going to get their way anyway, and my community needs investments in economic growth. We need a tax base. We understand these concerns too, but land use policies do have to be followed by everyone, again, as Joe said, if everyone is watching, and we all know that economic growth and conservation do not have to go hand in hand. So that is one of those, we don't have to buy into that argument. And that's it. So you've seen this now a couple times. Go see it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you,
And I took up all your time for questions. Sorry. No, I'm kidding.
We've still got time. I'm just going to wrap up.
Yep. I think he's going to do
Just going to wrap up here. We passed around QR codes for people to access these materials. Just wanted to mention future directions. Our presenters have alluded to this, but we're developing additional guidance documents, including trainings and workshops potentially in the future, additional docs for public usage, such as one-pagers, presentations that can be given in municipal meetings. And then we've also alluded to this, but going into the area of zoning, ordinances, MS4, so on and so forth. So plenty to work on, as you might expect. Please be in touch if you would like assistance, if you'd like to be involved in helping to develop these products, if you'd like to just give feedback. Please feel free. Here's some initial context, but you can certainly feel free to get in touch with any of the folks who were listed here today or who presented here today, or even any of the folks that you know in your local situations that may have contacts with any of our groups that we work with. Jim?
You have a comment on the MS4, I guess it's for Hallie. The MS4, which is a regulation on stormwater management, but the townships implement that. So can they, is that their guideline? I have just a case where I was building something in the middle of 600-acre wetlands, and the code said it was more than a certain number of square feet, and therefore I had to put in gutters, and I had to put in a rain garden, and the whole thing was ridiculous. So is common sense allowed at the local level, or does it's not allowed?
I work with I have a colleague of mine that was like my MS4 stormwater guru. I'm not as involved. I mean, there are, there's stormwater ordinances and,
But the township ordinances have to be more restrictive than MS4. They can't be less.
Well, or equally as, I would imagine. Anything's possible. It's about relationship building and talking and asking questions. And, if you're trying to do something and have questions about it, talk to the person, kind of understand what are they trying to protect and what are you trying to do, and find, but they are supposed to be protecting our waterways down where we are.
The zoning officer, we call it, Peanut mentioned it. They go by the book.
Right.
Common sense is not allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, to combine and come off of what Kelly's saying, so you're right. I mean, the DEP has formulas and approaches that are accepted for MS4 management. Right. And so, to go to the engineer for that town and say, what are the options here? Lay it out for me, please. And then try to figure out how you can fold what you want to do into one of those options. But they're very frustrated. The township engineers are very frustrated by this process and the restrictions on them, and then they can't do anything that's going to cost the township anything either. So, or try to minimize the cost of doing it. So it's tough for everyone involved, right. And so trying to work with them might be the best.
But to get an exception could take years.
Right. No, the exceptions are.
They don't have to.